Hi everyone, and welcome to Daily Revelations. This is a weekly Bible study where we go through God's Word one book at a time, and right now we are in the book of Daniel, and today is day 4 of our study this week in the book of Daniel, actually Daniel chapter 11. And so reading through this chapter every day and using different precept methods. Today our precept method is looking at the who, what, when, where, why, and how of this chapter. And as we kind of slow ourselves down and make those lists, God has a way of showing us something even new and that we haven't seen before. And so that's why we use these different methods just to help ourselves regulate reading God's Word and to put ourselves in the right position where God can speak to our hearts with whatever He has to speak to us. So what did God share with me today? Well, I want to talk about kingdom anchors because the thing that popped up to me was why? Why was Daniel talking about this and listing out all these things? And in the very first verse of this chapter, he says, I arose and was an encouragement and protection for the king. And then he lists on all these things that were going to happen that weren't so encouraging. And yet Daniel chose, in the midst of knowing what was to come, to go back and within the sphere that he was living now, not dwelling on what was going to happen in the future, was an anchor for this king. How did he anchor himself? Well, if we go look at these words in the original Hebrew, it says he basically confirmed and strengthened the king. This word confirm doesn't mean to agree with. It instead means to bond and to be so bonded, it's like you're glued together. And it's a continuous process of gluing and re-gluing. You know how things kind of get separated? It's like pulling back and coming back. And so Daniel was this consistent glue that he was pulling back and encouraging this king who, this was his first year reigning. He had no idea what he was doing, and he clung then to Daniel because Daniel was a trusted advisor. And then to strengthen means to be a fortress and something that is so solid and so impermeable that nothing from the outside gets in. And sometimes God calls us that to be that for other people. Sometimes we have to look to other people who will be that for us when we're in places where we don't know what we're doing. And so how do we do that though? And that's where my study took me today. And it took me to Galations 4. And in Galations 4, Paul basically states, you know what? The ways of the world, just like Daniel was listing out, all these kingdoms would come and they would go, and this is the whole chapter 11 is just filled with that. He said these are the tactics of man. They're based on emotions, greed, power, and power struggles. And it's consistent. It's happening over and over and over again. And the people that are doing it, and the timetable that they're doing it in, and the places they're doing it may be different. But guess what? It just keeps repeating itself. This is, unfortunately, when we're left to our own devices as humans, what we do. But how do we pull ourselves out of that as followers of Christ? And it's basically says that we need to let all those evil intentions and all those things just fall away from us and cling to our anchor, who is God and His truth. And that's it. So that's what we need to do. When we see all these things happening in the world, we can't be swayed by them. We can't allow them to pull us in, to suck us in, and to just ride these huge waves. We need to stay steadfast in the middle, anchored to God and His truth, because that doesn't change, and it's not going to send us on a wild roller coaster in life. It's going to keep us in a secure place where, like Daniel was for the king, bound to God, bound to truth, and steadfast in his fortress, which is even greater than just a earthly advisor. But at times, we sometimes need those earthly advisors too, or to be that to someone else. So be encouraged. I hope you read Daniel 11 and just do the who, what, when, where, why, and how, and see what God has to say to you. So thanks for joining me on Daily Revelations. I'll see you again next time. Bye, everyone.